All right, welcome everyone. We are now recording. Today we will be discussing the attendance update and Unified Insights update. This is just a reminder that this video is used for training purposes only, that no real students or data is portrayed in this video. Any likeness to any real students is purely coincidental. We are in a fake database, a fake student, so we can play to our heart's desire. So we are now recording. So one of the things that we went to bat for all of the districts is to have that attendance update to get back to some of the simple attendance entry that we had back where we were with iNow. Now, this is going to be a multifaceted release to get all of the different components together. So the most important component that we put as top of the list for PowerSchool to get coded first is that automatic synchronization of the meeting and the daily attendance. And that's what I'm going to demo for you today. I will be completely honest, there are a couple of bugs that the developers are still working out. We've been vetting this very heavily in pilot to have it as 100% accurate as possible before it's released to the districts. So I'll kind of show you all of that today. And then what will next steps be, because there's lots of parts that we want to this. But today's goal is to show you how we get, well, actually, it's two things. It's the autofill of that attendance throughout the day and the automatic creation of that daily record. So the first question that a lot of people ask, and I've already had this asked of tech directors, are, Stacy, what is it going to take to set this up once this is installed into our servers? So I want everybody to make sure that you understand this is not in your servers yet, okay? But I'm going to show you what you will need to do once it is in there. So remember, attendance is controlled at each individual school within the district. So once this update is pushed out and you decide that you want to utilize this new functionality, and you as a district can decide not to use it if you want to and still keep doing what you've always done. But if you would like to use this, there are two things that a district will need to do at each school in the district. So here I'm at my high school. The first thing I'm going to do is come down to the school under setup, and I'm going to scroll down to the calendar area, and I'm going to go into my bell schedules. So everybody in here has some bell schedules that they have set up. With this new rewrite, there will no longer be a need for that concept of a bridge period that we had to put in place to get a daily record previously inside of PowerSchool. So the first step that districts will need to do in order to get this new process working, once it is installed, again, it is not installed yet, you will need to disconnect your bridge period. I've already done it on my regular schedule, but let me show you on one of the other bell schedules, and you will need to do this for each one of your bell schedules. So I've done for my regular, let's just say I'm going to use this half-day exams. I'm going to hit edit schedule. And if you have built the bridge period, you know it because you've got this check mark for daily attendance. You'll go into that period. For a lot of districts, you built a homeroom period that everybody takes attendance in to run through. That will no longer be needed anymore once we move to this new design. So all I'm going to do is uncheck that box right here. And if you want to, just delete these out and hit submit, and your daily attendance record bridge is gone. So that will be step one, because you won't need a bridge, as we will be calculating in real time a daily record with this new process. The second step that every district will need to do is turn it on once the plugin is installed. Once you go back to school setup, you're going to come down here to the attendance area, and you're going to go to preferences. Once we install this new plugin, you're going to get a new area down here at the bottom of your attendance preferences up under those incident actions where we set it up. This is the checkbox that will have to be checked at each school to enable this new process. So if you decide that this is the way you want to go once we get it installed, you will check that top box to enable it. The second box, you will do the percent threshold to set as absence. So for our state, that is uniform. Everybody must use the number 49, because in the state of Alabama, a student must be present for 51% of the day in order to be counted as present. Therefore, they can only miss up to 49%. So that is our threshold. For the default present code, We're going to leave it blank because we do use the default present code, which is a blank, inside of PowerSchool for when no attendance is marked. So that will be step 2. Step 1, disable your daily bridge. Step 2, check a box and enter 49 as a threshold and hit submit. That is all that it will take in order for a district to turn this on. Now, what does it look like? What does it mean? What does it have as an effect on teachers and on our front office personnel taking attendance? So let's start with on the teacher side. So I have an incognito window here of a teacher book. And apparently somebody has gone into the teacher that I had queued up for this example and already taken attendance. So we'll see if it still works in doing a redo of attendance. But let's pretend that I had not taken attendance here for today. And so I would click into here just like I always do. And just like you always have as a teacher, you would mark, unexcused absence for whatever kids were not in class. And the teacher hits submit. Again, no functionality changes, but do you notice that that screen was slightly different? Notice how it spun. That spinning is going to be kind of the new process working in the background, showing here's how everybody is. Now go write a daily record for all of these kids. So each period as your day goes along and your teachers take attendance and mark a kid absent or present, it's going to look back at that student record and go, throughout the day, they were absent first period, they were absent second period, they still are going to get, absent for the day, and it's going to fill it all the way down. It will constantly calculate based on all of the periods how much time that student has been in school, and it will keep that daily record in sync, and you will not have to go back on that side and redo it as an attendance person in the front office. So for the teacher side, y'all, really nothing changes. They just take attendance. But what happens on the back side is where everything is completely changing. So I'm going to minimize this screen. So remember, I'm here at the high school. Remember also, there are quite a few ways to take attendance. You can take attendance from the teacher portal. You can also take attendance from teacher schedules within the actual admin console. So let's say that we've just called for all of our teachers to take attendance first period, and I have a teacher who is absent today. So a sub has sent a list of students to the front office, and I'm going to mark them absent for them. So let's say that it's Blake Busbin. He is my teacher who is not here today, and the sub has sent that record of attendance. So here's his first period history class with 13 students. So I can also take attendance from this side. Notice it looks like that same screen. I can say, all right, we're going to start them with unexcused absence. And I can mark the students who do not have their, who the sub has sent up and said they were not here today. So I'm going to choose Ava and Zykeria right here. So 2 students I'm going to mark absent for today's date, and I'm going to hit submit. Now, before I hit submit, this is where it's going to look quite a bit different on the attendance side. Because remember that in the past, if we were front office and we were marking someone absent, if we had that bridge period, yes, it was going to go ahead and write over to that side for us. It's going to do the same thing here, except it's going to give us a notification. So when I hit submit, there's a little bug. That's one of the bugs that they're working on. It's going to write that back over there. And if I go back to the main screen, I want to show you everything it did. Because again, you don't see a lot of difference right here in what you've done so far. However, if I go back to attendance, remember this is the page where we can see all of the meeting attendance, all of the daily attendance. I want you to look at what happened with those students. By clicking attendance on the teacher side and in the admin side, and all we did was for that first period, notice that it took that attendance record and it wrote it for the whole day. So when I marked Mickey Mouse absent a while ago in that driver's ed class, it marked them in that first period, but it also marked them throughout the day. When I just marked Ava absent from Blake Busbin's class, it marked them in first period and marked them throughout the day. So did it also write the daily record? Well, let's choose over here, look over here on the daily tab and see. So if I notice, there is Mickey Mouse, there is that record. Here is Ava, here is that record. Okay, so it's automatically writing throughout the day and it's writing that record. So that was part one of this update, for it to get the full day in there and get that daily code without having to have a bridge period and without you having to manually go update that bridge period. Now, here is where the real magic comes in. When you're doing those check-ins and check-outs, and you want it to go through and also update that daily code. So let's say that I'm sitting here in the front office and Mickey Mouse decides to check in and it's 1:30 in the evening. Okay, he's just going to come for that last period. So we know we can check out from quite a few pages. Oh, let me get off the daily record back onto the meeting record, sorry. So I know that I can enter in a check-in or check-out from this screen, or I can click into his record. So let me open it in a new tab, just show you both ways. I can come over here to enter attendance, and I've got the same record, same clock. So it does not matter which one of these screens you decide to enter this in on, it's going to work the same way. So just to show you, I'm going to use the flyout here. And let's say that Mickey has checked in. So he's been marked absent all day, and now here we are almost at the end of our third period right here. I'm going to hit the clock in. And let's say he is going to clock in at, let's say it's going to be 1:30. Let's pretend that's what time it is. All right, the students missed quite a bit of the time. Absent code is recommended. So let's say he was at the doctor all day long. So because he did do a doctor's excuse and it is going to be an absence, then I'm going to use that doctor's excuse. Now, I will tell you, one of the things that we want is to be able to fill subsequent periods. There is a secondary update in process that is going to allow us to work with additional periods, but that's not in this update, so we're not going to touch that. I'm going to hit save. And then so these need to be swapped to doctor's excuse, and everything afterward from that clock out, well, now he's here, so I'm changing that back to present. So I have this manual work right here for now, but there's an update coming that will allow us some flexibility here. So he checked in, I processed that check-in, I updated the codes for each one of the periods. I'm going to hit save. And it has taken that through. Now, this might be one of the bugs Lorenzo is working on, but you're going to see that it's going to present, and I actually want to do this. I want to go choose a kid because I want you to see that screen, and because that was a check-in and it didn't change the code, or it changed the code but didn't change the from absent to present, I'm going to go into teacher schedules and grab a kid that is present in Blake's class. So let me find one of these kids. Let's choose this student. So this student was not marked absent. So let's say that this student has decided to check out. They've been here all day and now they're going to check out, or they check out at the beginning of the day and it's going to change their code. So I'm going to come here to the check-in, check-out, and let's say they decide to clock out at 9 in the morning. I'm going to process this clock out. All right, it says for this period, they're present. Well, we know they've missed some, so I'm going to make that a tardy. Let's say they're going for driver's license or something, or well, that could be a school function. So let's say it's they got a dentist appointment that they're going to. For that period, it's going to be a tardy. That's not what it's going to be for the rest of them. So if I know that it's going to be a doctor's appointment, then I can go ahead, or you can wait until they bring the excuse back, mark whatever code it is you need to mark for them. So I've got, again, the periods updated. When I hit submit, This is the new screen that you're now going to be presented with as you're doing check-ins and check-outs that's going to reconcile that daily code for you without you having to go over and jump into that other record. So it will say, hey, originally when the teacher took attendance, we had them, as a none code because it was that default present code. And it's saying now, after you've made this change, it's saying that you're now going to miss 385 minutes of the 445, which is 86% absence. That's hitting the threshold, and we're going to write a new daily code to be doctor's excuse. Basically, it's saying, are you okay with this? Now, if for some reason you did not want to override this or did not want to override it, you can override it. I don't know many reasons why you would want to do that because you want it to keep these calculations for you. So I would hit submit. So it takes all of those that I have here, and if I flip over to the daily record and scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see that daily code is automatically writing for us now. So that's the part of this that is the new piece. It's getting it to push all of those periods down, and as you start processing check-ins and check-outs, it will automatically update that daily record. So if you have them absent, you check them in and it flips them to a present, it'll flip it for you. If you have them as a present and you check them out and it's enough for them to be considered absent, it will flip it to that code for you. Now, one of the questions that I know I'm going to have from districts is, what happens, Stacy, if, let's go back to the enter attendance screen, you have multiple codes within there. So you know how some kids will be late to school, so they check in because they were doing something, and then they check out because they're doing something later. And so you have different amount of codes across different periods. What it's going to do is look and see what is the one with the highest majority of the day being used. So if I have, let's say a check, how do I want to do this? Let's say I do a check-in right here. So let's test this and see. Let's say I clock in at 8:30 a.m. And of course, that's going to be a tardy. Not enough of that day. We hit save. But then let's also say they ended up staying for first, second, and check back out in third. So I clock in again. This time I'm doing a clock out at, let's see, third starts at 11:27. So we'll say 11:30. And it's going to be a doctor again. And I do want to fill the rest of the day because he's going to be gone the rest of the day. So I've got a clock in, a clock out. So when you have differing, which one has the majority of the codes used? It should be this. So our daily record should show to use this code. So let's see if it actually works. So when I submit, notice it is saying right here for this other day, notice it's still showing what we did last time, but it's no change. It's going to list anything you've done recently. It's going to say, hey, there was a previous code of a present, but with all those check-ins and check-outs, it's recalculated all the time. We're at 59%, threshold at 49. Your new daily code is going to be DE, and I hit submit because I agree with that. So it's keeping them in sync. Now, another thing to keep in mind is depending on what code you allow teachers to input, it will automatically update that code as well from the teacher side if teachers take different attendance. So remember with this, and even when we were in INL, one of our biggest thing is first period teachers had to take attendance, because if they didn't take attendance, it didn't write all through the day and the daily code never got there. Kind of sort of the same thing here. First period really needs to take attendance. So if you're at that school, I don't care if you're K-12 school, if you're a high school, middle school, elementary school, how many ever periods you have built in, whoever's at the beginning of the day needs to take attendance. So it writes down the day. But let's say that a teacher didn't take attendance, because sometimes we have some that doesn't. So let's say on this student, first period teacher does not take attendance. So this kid gets marked present. Second period teacher comes in and does take attendance and hits, unexcused absence. Okay. That's going to automatically fill it for the rest of the day. So I'm going to simulate it just because I don't have another teacher login to take. it's going to end up doing that. If third period then comes in and goes, oh, well, they were present, it's going to flip it to present and anything subsequent. So what this is doing is every time a teacher takes attendance, whatever they have changed it to, it's going to say that's it for the rest of the day because they're assuming that this teacher is correct. Now, once we get this to place in Fidelity, we are working on a student's alerts plugin that will then be able to go in and look and say, do you have this kind of mismatch of they were here, they were not, they were here, they were here, so that we can start pointing out skippers to you. Because we'll be able to see by that fill down whether somebody marked somebody absent and then they marked them back present again without a check-in or check-out having occurred. So each time this happens, as the teachers go through, it's going to update that daily code every period. Now, a teacher will not be able to overwrite something that has been pushed down to the front office. So that functionality is still intact. So if the parent has already come to you and said, hey, they're going to be absent, and you've went ahead and marked them for the day, or you put in a field trip or a school activity or ISS or OSS, all of that will still remain in place, and the teachers will not be able to overwrite that to push anything new on top of it. But all of that functionality will still write that record over there. So let's talk about some of those other ways that attendance gets in here. I'm going to go ahead and save this just so you can watch it update that daily record again. So see, here's that new record. It's saying based on those absences that I just entered, hey, this is new. I want it to go from none to unexcused absence, and that is correct. So let's now say we've got Thursday and Friday on here on this student. Let's just pop over and enter in an incident on this student real quick. So let's say that Wednesday morning this student got into trouble for the one period while they were here. So if I create an incident for today, let's just do this like down and dirty really quick and just say they use profanity on campus. I'm going to, Atkins. So here's the student, add the student. They are an offender. Okay, we're going to add in the behavior, profanity, add it in, drop it over, and then let's say they get out of school suspension. So I'm going to do out of school, and let's say we're suspending them for Thursday and Friday. So it's actually going to end on Friday. So I'm going to give them 2 days of OSS. So I'm going to add the action, put it over here, and then here's my attendance option. So I am going to set the range for everything. So remember, the one thing that I needed to pick up now is that daily record. So when I hit OK and I submit, it's going to give that override. Now, I will say this is one of the bugs that I've got the developer working on because for some reason it's not displaying that override record right there for you to hit the submit on, but you'll go through both processes right there on those. So in the background, each one of those are going and you'll just hit that submit screen. Other things to keep in mind is that you can do it from multi-day attendance. You can do it from, let's see, teacher portal, teacher slide out, individual student screen, which kind of is self-explanatory from what we did there, and then from the actual discipline writing area of it. So that is step one of this new thing, is to get that attendance daily record where it's calculating it on its own and you're not having to go to a student, enter their attendance, because so many people have been doing this for years. Going to the attendance, scrolling down, finding the week, placing them in here. Once you get it in here, you have to go back, do whatever you need here. Then you had to go back to the daily record and you had to do these insertions over here. We will not have to do that in the future. So with this and it being syncing, questions that people are asking is, are we going to have to change our FTE setup to meeting or daily to something else? It really will not matter. You're keeping them in sync. So you can, if you want to swap them to daily, since we're all going to be producing a daily record, then you will need to. If you are a district who has never collected a daily record on a school, one of the things that you will need to do is actually go make sure daily is turned on to calculate a daily record. So just to show you where that is, under your attendance and your preferences, you will want to make sure that meeting and daily are all three checked. So if you are, let's say, an elementary school that, you know, only ran the one period and you only had meeting and you want to see both that meeting and daily record keep in sync, you will want to go turn that on. There's a few districts out there have been running meeting only and not meeting and daily, but here you'll want to have both of them on. A couple of questions that have come in. Patrick said, can you show step one again? So step one, Patrick, was you having to undo the actual bridge period. So in your bell schedule, you'll need to look at all your bell schedules and any of them that you had in as a bridge. So let's just say this one right here. If you had any check in daily attendance, you would need to go into that period and you need to take these away, because you do not want it to try to do any bridge, because then it's just going to be fighting the process that we'll have in place. Ben's asking about remote enrollment. Ben, that's going to be in a separate phase. Right now, we're having to make sure we get everything correct in the individual schools, because right now, remote enrollments, the home school and the remote school don't talk to each other at all. So that's going to have to be a completely different process. This is just, this first part of the process is a code just in here. So let me go ahead and tell you everything that's kind of in the scope for the work of this. Yes, we will be talking about remote enrollments. The other big thing that people have asked for are the mass check-in capabilities, and they are working on that code right now as well. I can kind of tell you what we're thinking and where it's going to go. But you know how when we have a group of students selected, so let's just say I chose all 12th graders for some reason, you know how we have the attendance change that we can do? Well, we're thinking of putting something in that group functions where we will be able to go ahead and do that grab all these kids and apply that in there. The reason that that can't be part of this plugin that we're going to have installed is because that's actually going to have to be part of a core update. And so they're having to kind of go side by side with the UX team for core, because this is that part will be updated for everybody in the world that uses PowerSchool. The syncing right now is just going to be for us in the plugin, but that attendance change for mass doing a check-in will be for everybody. The other part of it is, if I go into a kid's record, when we're doing that check-in and check-out, you know how sometimes we need to do more than one thing? So if I go into this meeting attendance and let's just say he's going to check in or check out, it really is going to be beneficial when it's a check in. So let's say it's a check in, the student has been absent all day, you're checking him in, he's going to be tardy first period. And so you choose this tardy, but you're like, hey, for the rest of the periods, if I want to fill them, I don't want them filled with tardies. I want them filled with present to be something else. They are working on a second piece or third piece to this that will allow you to have another line down here, like down here, that will be the subsequent period. So if you need to fill this period with one thing and everything below it with something else, you'll be able to do that. That way you don't have to do all of those individual clicks like I had to do here, putting the tardy and then click, click, click. So we've got multiple variations of this release that's going to be coming that gets all this put back the way that we want. And for each one of them, you're going to see your attendance pages. Attendance pages here. Start filling in completely. Now, for these kids who you don't see anything over here, that means they don't have anything scheduled for those periods. So if I look at Justin and do this, you'll notice he only has a first period class. He doesn't have anything scheduled for the rest of the day. So it's still going to be looking at that bell schedule and what they have scheduled in that bell schedule for that totality. So if you have a kid, let's say that only has 2 classes out of the 4 of the day, it's going to be looking at the codes within those 2 classes to determine 100% of the day to figure out if it's going to be an attendance of a present or an attendance of an absence. Let me see, go back. Had 2 questions. Will we receive an email when the new updates will be pushed out? Absolutely, because this is like going to be 911 radar on everybody to go press these buttons. We are fighting hard and heavy to try to have everything finished by this weekend to see if we can possibly push it out by this weekend. I don't know. It depends on how we get these last few bugs tightened up. Jana, if we're currently set for meeting only, are there additional check boxes needed in preference to? Yes, and that's going to be that daily check box, Jana. That's why I just went back and mentioned it. Now that the meeting daily will be synced, what is the best attendance report to run to find out total unexcused absences for each student? So there'll be a couple of ways to get that, Scott. So once we get this full-fledged into everybody, I'll send out some videos showing how to configure like an PSCB report, because for unexcused, it depends on which, if you just want that UA code, you can find on just that code and be able to get those. So we'll do a secondary training once this is in place on kind of running reports off of that. Beverly said, has anyone had issues with remote school attendance writing back to the homeschool? Yes, it does. Those are 2 different schools because the sections are in different areas. So you're going to have meeting attendance over here and you're going to have meeting attendance over here, but that does not write back to give you a daily code yet over there. So that's something to that we've got in our scope to work with. Wendy, can we go ahead and uncheck the bridge period even though the updates haven't been applied? Wendy, it depends on when you start school. Like if you're starting school next week, don't leave it in there in case you need to start the school with it calculating like it did last year before you make the swap. If you've got, a few weeks down the road, then if you want to go ahead, you can. And this is something to kind of think about too for districts who had to kind of make that like a bridge homeroom that you didn't necessarily want everyone. I wouldn't go messing with the master schedule at this point, but for next year, we might be able to ease up some on master schedule. So we'll have more conversations about this as the year goes on. Erica, will the OSS or ISS automatically update if I'm in daily? Yes, it will, Erica. It should have done it in the past anyway because the bridge period would have pulled it over, but if it wasn't, it definitely will with this. We'll talk about attendance after we get all this in there. Robert's saying, are you saying attendance won't sync from career tech centers to the homeschool within a district? So, Robert, it hadn't been in the past. Like you would see, well, and it depends on how yours is set up. So, what I'm saying is if you had 2 separate sets of schedules and you had a schedule over here, and it could be a career tech center, it could be an alternative school, that daily record has those meetings have never went back in to write the daily record. So that's always been a gap in this. So that's still something on our list to get corrected in here. Gary, if the plugin handles a bridge into daily, we don't have a homeroom at all. We can absorb those minutes into the first period and be fine. That is correct, Gary. So if you wanted to make that swap, you could. Because I know a lot of people had to stick in like 5-minute homerooms just to get a bridge period to start writing all this. Patrick, I will let you know as soon as the plugin is pushed. Kind of same thing. Bob mentioned that field subsequent periods box will be coming. Do they have access to the box now? If so, what happens if they select it? No, that's not in here yet because like I said, that's going to be something that's going to be in the core side. So we don't have access to that update yet. As soon as we do, I will let y'all know about that. But I just wanted y'all to know what's in the full scope of all of this so that you know this is not just where we're ending with attendance. We've got lots of other goodies that we're adding, but the biggest thing is to take off some of the work of y'all having to do meeting records and daily records. Now you're just keeping it all up through meeting as the day goes along, and then everything will write to that daily record, very similar to what we had in iNow. So if you are an old school iNow person, you know what I'm talking about. If you're brand new to Power School and never knew anything about iNow, just know this is going to get a lot better for you once this is going in. Sarah's asking, is a rural truancy dashboard part of the update, or do we need to purchase like we've done in the past? If you are a customer, I would suggest still purchasing from them. I'm not saying you have to. I'm saying that truancy is going to be an update that we were working on after we get the attendance writing done correctly. Don't have an ETA on that because we're working to get all these attendance pieces fixed first. After that, then Power School will be working on updating the truancy functionality within the SIS for us as a state. So that was kind of very brief, very down and dirty, just kind of showing you what's going to happen with those screens, how it is going to do that right back. I wanted to let you know so y'all could start having conversations in your district to know if you are actually going to use this in your district, because you don't have to. You can keep doing things the way that you have been if you want. I wouldn't advise that because this is going to be easier. But then how you will turn it on, and as soon as it is available, I will let you know. We'll have another webinar where we'll go through it, and we'll go through it in detail because, like I said, there are still a couple of bugs in here that we're working on. One of them I know is if you have a kid who is absent all day and you go to check them in and it just changes it to a tardy, which should make the overall code present for the day, it's again blanking out that day. So once we get it where it's actually showing you that code to do the submit on, we'll do this. Yes, this is being recorded so that you can go back and watch it, and I'll be sharing it out to everyone and putting it in the newsletter to go out. So that is the first thing that I wanted to talk about was attendance and show you what is coming with that. Now, the second piece to this webinar is to talk about unified insights. So remember a few months back, we did the real big reveal and everybody's been hearing about the dashboard that we're going to be getting. If you're in curriculum, you know that the MTSS team has been talking about it. Bonnie and her team with ARI specialists have been talking about it for the Literacy Act because it will contain student plans, SRIP, portfolios, things such as that, and all of our interventions. So the dashboards are hot and heavy and they are up. Where we are at now is getting security in place. So hopefully everyone has read what's been in the Power School updates emails that come out every Monday, because for the last 2-3 weeks, I've included the documentation about security. And so we're at the point that we need people to start deciding who's going to go in what group and where to turn it on at. So if you are a Power School administrator that has access to security, you should have noticed from those directions that inside of system under security and roles administration, user access roles, every district has different types of roles configured here. Okay. People have task-based roles, people have access-based roles. So you might have one for counselor, for registrar, for principal, or you might have one that says discipline permissions, you know, the enrollment clerk, whoever it is. Within each one of these roles, you will now see new options. Oh, they did not update my plugin when they did the update. Okay. Oh, I can't show this because I'm in pilot anyway. On this access roles page, you see a whole nother list down here. I don't see them on pilot, but if you go into production, you're going to see them. What you are going to see, and here's a screenshot of it right here, and everyone should have this page. It's been in the updates. If you do not have it, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Remember, copy and paste this entire link. Don't try to just click on that from the chat. It'll take you to this document. When you go to security roles, you have these different roles descriptions. So the way these roles work, and they're pretty self-defined here, is that you're going to have district level access or school level access. If it's school level access, it's going to be based on the schools you have been given access to in SIS. So if I'm a user in my site and I've only been given access to the high school, then when I put myself in as a school admin, I'm only going to be able to see the high school's data. I will not be able to flip a filter that shows me multiple schools. There are different tiers of access. So if you are a district admin or a school admin that's just called that, You're going to get access to all the dashboards and be able to drill all the way down to a student. So for example, if I'm looking at the chronic absenteeism dashboard and I'm looking at the chart that says I have 32% chronically absent, I can click into the 32%. It'll list me all of the students. And if I want to click on a student to go to their record, I can. This again drills down into student data for the schools that you have access to in SIS. If you are a primary school admin, so what's the difference in being a school admin and a primary school admin? This one will give you access to all essentials, including the drill down, with the exception of final grades and assessment data. Because maybe your attendance and you don't need to see grades or assessments. There are ways that you can block certain pieces of this. A secondary school admin will be a drill down for all secondary schools with the exceptions, curriculum, assessment data. So this will be for those that are for primary schools, because there are categories of schools inside of PowerSchool. So if you have a very large school district where you have some people who are over primary schools, some who are over secondary schools, and you need to give them access to just those in certain areas, you can break those apart. You can also be given school admin access that will give you access to all the dashboards, but will not let you drill down into the dashboards. So if you want somebody to be able to see all of the data in charts, but not be able to drill down to see the who's, you can give access with no drill through. We also have the access where you can give access to all essentials, except they will not be able to see any free or reduced lunch data information on a student, and they'll not be able to see behavior data, because one of the things that we kept hearing in Performance Matters from some districts is some districts did not want certain people seeing behavior data. So you could give them access to everything but behavior data. And then we've got some custom roles that we can figure. So these are the ones that you need to start figuring out how you want to place your persons inside of PowerSchool for this setup. Start working with your security team to go to your user access roles. And you can either do it by access roles that you have already configured. So if you knew that you had a counselor and you want them to be able to get school level everything, then you can go ahead and just go to that counselor role and select that. And anybody you've placed that role on will get those permissions. If you have a principal and you're like, yep, you're going to get school level everything, you can go ahead and do that. Another thing that I have seen some districts talk about doing is to create new security groups and new security roles named each one of these. And that way you can cherry pick to say, yeah, y'all all might be counselors, but this counselor is getting this permission and this counselor is getting this permission. That way you don't go broad group to everybody. So that is another option, is to, again, create a security group and role that ties together and assign these individually to users instead of wide groups. And remember, you can mass assign roles, so that kind of helps in this situation. And if anybody on here who is the tech administrator, the PowerSchool admin, and wants some help with that, we'll do, feel free to reach out to me, to one of the PowerSchool coaches. We can help you get those set up so you can start assigning that to those. Now, these roles take a second step. It takes the actual configuration of the pass-through for the SSO districts. Right now, I've got 2 districts, a Google district and a Microsoft district, working with PowerSchool to test the setup to make sure we have all the steps and directions ready and correct before we let everybody have. But that is coming hot and heavy. As soon as we get the go-ahead from them that it's working, I will start reaching out to all the Google districts, sending you your information. There's a set of steps that you have to go through to configure a SAML app over in the Google Admin Console. For Microsoft districts, there's something that you're going to have to go into your Microsoft setup and set up inside of Azure for us. And you're going to have to send us your metadata file back so that we can then make the connection. Once that connection's in place and you've got these roles mapped, we'll start being able to get y'all inside of Unified Insights and walking through data validation together. So as you are putting these roles together on who you want, and I would start with my district people and my principals, that kind of the high end first. There's nothing you have to do for teachers. They will automatically get a classroom view once we get in there. We'll talk about that in some training because it's all going to be piecemealed out. We're not going to give you all this up front and overwhelm you with it. Once we get this, myself and the Power School coaches will be contacting districts to start walking through the data validation. Guys, I will tell you this, there's not a lot of validation you're going to have to do because we've already done it at a state level for you because we are uniform in so many things at the state. The one thing that everyone is going to have to do that you can go ahead and be setting up now is creating the type of GPA you want to see at your schools. And I sent directions in the newsletter for the past couple of weeks of how to set up what they call a class rank GPA. So what you will need to do at each one of your schools, you'll need to go into the school setup and you will come down here to grading and class rank, and you'll need a class rank method. And what we've asked is for each person to create a new one in a school, so you only need one in the school. Name it Unified Insights. So you know this is the GPA you are saying to use for your students at this school. So if it's a primary school or a middle school, pretty much you're going to want to use that simple GPA because there are no credits or anything like that at those schools. So you'll want to use that simple. If you're a high school, well, which one do you typically put on your transcripts? That's the one that we would recommend that you place in here. And again, this is not something that parents and stuff can see. This is just something that you can see internally. But decide of all of these GPAs that we have pushed down since implementation, we have added value, we have weighted, we have simple, percent, whatever it is. If added value is the one that I put on there because I want that, you know, weighted with credit GPAs, then you choose that. But set each one of these up for there. If you use multiple GPA calculations, you have to select one because this is going to give you an analytics point to say this student has had this GPA over the years to show you if they're increasing or decreasing their GPA values. Okay, so again, if you are a K-12 school, if you are a high school that uses 2 or 3 GPAs, you're going to have to come together as a school and decide which one do you want on here to apply for your students. Okay, and I'll be happy to have any conversations one-on-one with districts to help them in that decision if we need to. Patrick, I can already access Unified Insights with the App Switcher in Power School. So if you can, that probably means you're not a SSO district, Patrick. And yes, as soon as you start mapping those roles, you will be able to get in there. So we will start, again, after we validate with these two and have sent out directions, we'll start working probably with the non-SSO districts that y'all can go ahead and get in and start doing some data validations with you. We're still tweaking a few of the formulas. Attendance is one that's still being tweaked inside of there to get correct, but we should have everything wrapping here shortly. Jana, if we already had Unified Insights, will ours be updated to have the same setup as statewide? If you already had it, Jana, you're going to be in a whole different server. So if you decide to keep your contract with your personal one for the district, you can, but the two don't mingle together, and nothing that we will need to be seeing at the state level will we be able to see in yours. So everything will have to be pushed through this. So step one is going to be getting security, getting everybody signed in, getting the data validations on the actual dashboards. We'll pretty much do that throughout August as school's starting up, kind of hit and miss when people are kind of dying down from that startup of school. In September, that's when you're going to start seeing, fingers crossed, if everything goes all right with this security setup, we're not going to start pushing out the official trainings through the regional in-service centers and stuff like that until after September, so that we can start talking about the student plans, the interventions, the MTSS models, and things like that. So I don't want anybody to panic to think that there's going to be a lot of training coming back to back, because we're going to kind of slowly roll this out in bits so people can get used to it. Shelley, if we have a K-12 school and use weighted GPA as a choice, how will that affect K-6? So if you do a weighted GPA, Shelley, it'll be whatever. There's no weights in there for it to consider. So I'm not sure if it'll calculate as a simple or if it just won't display anything at all. I'm betting it won't display anything because there won't be any potential credit for it to look at there. Robert, for K-8 GPA, does that mean non-credit bearing courses need to be marked to include in GPA? Also, would we need to go back in historical grades and change this? We would probably need to look at some of those because if you have specifically excluded things from counting in GPAs, sorry, y'all, it means that it might need to be there. And now I will say this, if it becomes so much of a hassle, especially if you're like a K-12 school, most people would want to focus this on your high school students and not necessarily, because if GPA is not something you look at a lot with your elementary kids and don't need to, that metric does not have to be populated in there. So we have choices in there. So if you want to set that class rank up so that you display GPA, Angie, you can. Are we requiring it? No, but it's a metric that is available there for districts to use. And so Patrick's asking if we put it in there, do we need to send in a form? I will be sending out a form to districts as soon as I know everybody is kind of up and going with the security to start asking what GPA methods they are setting up. And we'll give you those directions to fill that out for your district. So information on that will be coming soon. So I scheduled this for 2 hours just in case anybody had a lot of questions about this, but that's kind of a very down and dirty, quick and brief overview. But I will say, start watching your emails as if y'all don't get enough from me already, I know. But as the attendance hits and it's ready, I'll start emailing out and I will start recording little screencast and doing tutorial steps like guided notes for you on those to help with those. And as we get closer with this and get confirmation with the 2 districts that we're testing, we'll start getting you in so you'll hear from myself and the Power School coaches on this setup. Monica, each school can have their own GPA method inside of here. Bob, is the RI attendance code a chronic absenteeism contributor? Bob, to be honest, I would have to look back at the new manual, and I do not have a copy of it in front of me. I know it's still getting released, but here's the thing. If it is a present code, it does not count toward chronic absenteeism. If it is an absent code, it will count toward chronic absenteeism. So depending on which way it goes, would be there. So if it's a present code, it will be non-chronic. And y'all will see as soon as I get that manual, I'm waiting on Kay and them to send me that copy. I will be adding it into the enterprise controller, so y'all will see that new code come down. And just as a FYI to well, to everyone who this is your first WebEx with me, I know in the 2 months that I've been off at conferences, nothing has changed about the hour mark. It still likes to take me away for a minute. So what I was saying is there is going to be a second new attendance code, and after it gets pushed out, I will send that out to everyone as well. Dina's saying we are using a third-party identikit to update our check-in out meeting attendance. Will we have to re-engineer anything on the meeting side with them? Dina, you might want to check with them. Here is my thing. If you've got what you like working, you might not want to turn this new thing on. If you're using a third party to do it. So you kind of need to make that decision if you even want to use this once it's out there, or if you want to just keep going with them, or if you want to have the conversation with them about what is changing and see if they need to re-engineer any connections. Any other questions from anyone? Attendance. We've always added the homeroom for the first 10 to 15 minutes of the day to take attendance. So now we need to add that back to our first period, correct, or leave as is. Barbara, you can leave as is if you want to. And then if you decide to take it out, you can. If school is fixing to start for you, I would probably leave it in there and not try to mess with that master schedule. If you're like a late August, because I know we should have this by then, I'm hoping to have this by Friday, you can take it out if you just don't want to see that in there. But if it were me doing it, I would just leave it in there and roll with it right now. And then the good thing is once they take attendance in that homeroom class, it's going to write the rest of the day. So if it's a class where they actually had homeroom for 5 minutes and then first period for like the next 40 minutes and it's all the same class, they just don't have to take it again in that first period class. Tiffany, are there any third-party vendors, i.e. student conductor, that's aware of this update for Alabama? Tiffany, we don't communicate with the third-party vendors. Neither does PowerSchool unless they're premier partners. So my answer on that is probably no. Someone just asked, what kind of assessment data is going to be available? Assuming we're talking about inside of Unified Insights, it's going to be, so the beginning of year, middle of year, end of year, Literacy Act assessments. So the, y'all know what I'm thinking of. The Renaissance, STAR, iReady, those are going to be in there along with all of our state assessments. Douglas, I saw where the state was eliminating the EA code. Will there be something added for excused absence? How will we code those moving forward? So there's already a slew of excused absence codes. What they're eliminating the EA for is to get rid of the catch-all. So use one of the excused absence codes. That's what it's for. Was it a parent excuse? Was it a doctor's excuse? You know, that what they're trying to do is get you to move forward using this specific reason that they were absent instead of just a catch-all for excused. Excused absence was not supposed to make it in there with Go Live at PowerSchool, and it accidentally slipped in, so it had to stay there. But any questions that you have on those codes, I will say direct to Kay Warfield and her team who's over the attendance manual, because they can kind of give more reasoning behind what that committee decided as a state. James, can we not enter other alerts anymore? Oh, it should be, James. So what we did find out is when they did the update this weekend, a few districts, the plugin did not get re-enabled. So if you go to your plugin management, James, and see if your student alerts plugin is enabled, it might just be that you need to check the box. If it is checked and you don't see them, put in a ticket to PowerSchool so they can get that back up and going for you. Angie, my attendance director asked, when we mark a student a no-show, will PowerSchool erase their absences? No, you'll need to go in and erase those absences for any withdrawal, just like you have had to in the past. Oh, Charles made a good point inside of here. If any of y'all have already started marking your assessment cohorts, because I did see on the listserv, some of y'all got like Johnny on the spot. If you decide to remove homeroom and you use that to flag your assessment cohorts, you'll need to go back and reflag them in whatever class you want to now. So just keep that in mind. So it might just be easiest to leave homeroom in for right now. Shelly, at elementary junior high schools that have only a homeroom in the bell schedule, are we just as well off to leave it like that since it automatically updates daily anyway? We start next week. Yeah, Shelly, I would just say leave it. Now, I can foresee a lot of elementary schools maybe next year looking at actually building out a true bell schedule and putting all of their, homeroom reading, math, English, so they can use the Find Me feature better. And this way your teachers just take attendance in homeroom, it writes through all the day, and you can work with it. So it's just up to you, completely up to you as a district how you want to do that. Christy, attendance to clarify, if a student is marked present first period and then the second period marks them absent, the remaining periods will be marked absent after second period post. Correct. Office can enter attendance that isn't overridden, but a teacher period by period can overwrite what is posted by teachers. Yes. So that means that your teachers have to make sure they're taking accurate attendance, which can also, again, show us those skippers. So if first period teacher says present, second period teacher says absent, and it writes through, but then third period teacher comes back and says present and fourth present, well, that tells you they skipped second period. So that's kind of the reason for that. Eric, will the attendance manual be ready for 23-24? That I don't know, because unfortunately that doesn't fall under my wheelhouse. Dr. Warfield and her team are the one who are handling that, so you might want to check with her to see when that will be available. When will the state assessment data be available? Will it only be for 22, 23, and who will have access? If you are referring to Unified Insights, you get to determine who has access by those user mapping roles. It's going to be for, I know for the last year, since we've been in Power School, what data we have in there. So you will see some longitudinal data to begin with. I know that last year's data, like those ACAP scores that were just released, they're not going to be in there until they've come out of embargo or whatever. Just like we can't throw them in performance matters and stuff until they come out of that. So once they've been cleared to be released and y'all aren't just looking at the portal results, then we'll be able to add them in there as well. Can our teachers see a skipper on their side? Yes and no, Chris. It depends on where they're looking. There is a place where a teacher can go and see like that holistic view of all of the periods. It's on that main page. I don't know how many put the effort into go and doing that, so they'd be able to see a whole. It might be something, because there's nothing that's going to say, hey, well, if they were present first period and they're now absent and they don't see that, you check them in or out with the code, maybe that would be the thing to flag them. It's more of them understanding protocol and everything being flagged on the administrative side for skippers. Nicole, if a teacher doesn't take attendance, how will this affect? Well, it's just like the other thing. And y'all, unfortunately, there is nothing that I can do with the program that's going to make a teacher take attendance. Trust me, I wish there was, but that is just training and protocol with your teachers. If they don't take attendance, so again, if it's first period and they don't take attendance, then it's going to write present throughout the day. If the second period, the teacher then comes in and goes, okay, they were absent, it's going to write absence for the rest of the day, and they'll have that one period present, the rest absent. So again, you're going to have to be on your teachers about making sure that they take attendance. Robert, yes, for the students who go to a Career Tech Center, will it show the time the student is at the Career Tech Center to the homeschool so they can determine the daily code manually? None of that's changed, Robert. So on that meeting screen where you have like the fraction at the top where you can see all the percentages, just like we could last year, all of that is still staying there for you. Oh, so Scott just asked a question. Will there be an alert for students who have reached their maximum number of parent codes like I now did? So our fabulous developer that we have up here, and Mr. Russ Cummings, is actually working on the end-all be-all of student alerts. And I can't show it to you right now because, again, it's still in works. He's kind of got a mock. There's something I just can't show you right now. But anyway, we'll be able to configure all kinds of alerts, and the alerts will be able to be controlled by security. So like I know one of the alerts that he's got on there are for medication that's expired that you'll want to assign to nurses. There's one for parent notes where you can set a threshold to say, I want to know somebody if they've hit 7 parent notes. There's one for homeless students. Hey, you've just enrolled a homeless student in the last 5 days. There's one for special ed students. You've enrolled special ed students in the last 5 days. We're trying to take all of those big alerts that y'all have all asked for the last year and package it in a nice alert dashboard that will sit on the front page of SIS. So in other words, when you're at the school, you know how some of y'all have that alerts plug-in now where it will list like a bunch of kids at the top to say, hey, this student is enrolled but in no classes. This is a misalignment of courses. This student is missing their email address. So in that top real estate area up here, you're going to see a dashboard of icons. Each one of those icons are going to be whichever of the alerts have been turned on for you based on your security. So once we have that alerts plug-in packaged and ready to go, we'll do a really big webinar on that to show you all the different things that you can have at your hand. But I will say y'all are going to be very, very pleased with what Russ has built in that, because it's going to give you a lot of things that you asked for in alerts. Charlene, should the Power Pack EWS be enabled? No, because that's the old one. The new one is just web reports. There was 3 that were packaged together in one, so that's the old one and does not need to be, Charlene. Mike, any update on a discipline letter? You can still build out a discipline letter. There's that one that's floating around from ReportWorks that quite a few people have shared. And you can build it in an object report. I know what people are wanting from the one that actually writes the information over from the infraction. That's the one that we're still working on the Power Query letter for. So that one's kind of, it's a little delayed, but it's still in queue. Uh-oh, Erica, I see the question, what's the recommended use instead of that one, but I don't know which one you were talking about. Sorry, can you re-enter that? Oh, a request has been made. So yeah, the excused absence was taken away so that you could use one of the more direct excused absence reasons. So there's the ones like parent note, doctor's note, etc. You would use one of those. Corey, attendance now starts in first period and not homeroom. So Corey, no, attendance starts at the beginning of your day. So whatever your day starts, whether it be a homeroom class or be a first period class, when teachers start taking attendance, that's when those calculations are going to start, and they're going to keep up in real time. So as the day progresses and each one of your teachers takes attendance, and if you're that school that says everybody take attendance first period and then any changes have to be done through the front office, that can be done as well. So it just completely depends on how you want to structure this within your district, knowing it's going to do that auto writing back and forth as they go along. Susan, is there a drop-down menu to ask who is checking the student out? No, Susan, there's not. What a lot of districts have been doing is just been recording that in the notes area of the checkout. It's like if I go to a kid and go to the enter attendance screen, if I do a checkout here, clock in, clock out, or clock out. Let's do that. And he's going to be doctor's note, Phil. And then you can just put it in comments. There has been no request to put that in there, so I doubt we'll see that at any point with this. When running attendance for truancy meetings, should I run daily or meeting or both? With this update, once we get it, Eric, we'll shift everybody to daily on those reports because it's going to be your easiest and most accurate thing to run. And once we do get everybody calculating this daily, that's when we can get Russ involved and see what we can start putting out there that will help pop some of these truancy things for you so that you're not having to run as much. So lots of things still to come on the truancy side of things. Like I said, this is one of those things that's it's going to take baby steps to get through everything. But our biggest chunk and the hardest piece to code was to get this auto synchronization of that daily record based on what's been put in meetings, what's been put in check-in and checkouts, because there's so many different places to actually enter attendance on here. We've had to take into consideration all of those pages to make sure it's working functionally. So that's the biggest one. So Daniel, one of our schools decided to remove a homeroom. Scheduling and bell schedules already set. How can I add a homeroom period back? So interesting that you asked that, Daniel, because I filmed a video today to show people how to put a period back in there. So it's on YouTube, but I can show you real quick. If you need to add a period back, so like you've got 6 periods and you need to bump it up to 7 so that you can put a homeroom back in there, that is controlled in the years and terms setup. So if I go into my school year and you need an additional period, you just bump this number up to how many you need. Once you do, so if I change it from 7 to 8, then now when I go into school and I go into periods, and actually let me swap it to next year so it shows right. Now you'll see I have 8 periods there, and you can go in it, name it homeroom, and do whatever you need to with it. So if you need to add in an extra period, that is where you would do it. Right on. Eric, can I run a report to show SPED students enter students with healthcare plans? Absolutely. So enterprise reports, guys, are still where I'm like throwing everybody when it comes to the majority of these reports. So for enterprise reports, so let's start with special education students. Now, Eric, in this report, are you wanting them like one and the same? You want a report of special ed students who have health plans, or you're just looking for like 2 separate lists? Okay, so first one, this one right here, like these set, depending on how you want to put them together. I've got them in a report where you can see special education, 504, and EL all together. Or if you just want to see special education, make sure that your district power school administrator has installed this enterprise report for you because it's beautiful. It gives you like the counts of how many are in special programs, how many are gifted, how many are 504, and then it breaks down each one of your exceptionalities. So you're able to see all of your kids in a list, and you can sort and filter and print to your heart's desire. So if you want to look at kids who are just gifted or who are just, SLD or whatever, you can get it inside of there. So that is your special education reporting one. And then we also have a health plan report up here that is available. So again, if your person has installed this for you, I can go in here and this is one that you do have to run at district office, which by the way, we are working on something that's a workaround to this. So stay tuned on that one. But let me show you what it is, Eric. If I go back to district office and again, go into system reports. And by the way, Eric, majority of these reports can be run at both school and district. It's just 3 of these help ones cannot because of some blockers and power school security that we can't get around. But it'll look like this. It'll give you all of the kids and it'll give you all of the plans that are inside of there. I want to work with Scott because a couple of y'all have asked to like update this so that you can maybe have some counts to know how many are on a diabetics plan, how many are on this plan, how many are on that plan. So we'll see if we can do some of that. But yes, enterprise reports are what I point everyone to because we have lots of them out there for all kinds of different things. In fact, we put 2 new ones on the newsletter that went out this morning. So hopefully you have installed them. We have the migrant immigrant data. So if you are the person who oversees that in your district, you now have an easy way to pull your immigrant and migrant data. And we updated one of them. I cannot remember which one. Carla asks, how do I get the newsletter? So great question. Let me go grab my little list right here. So they are sent to education directory groups. So you want to make sure that you are listed in the education directory for your school. If you're not one of these positions, then we have a generic position called Power School Contact. If you'll get your district to add you to the education directory as a Power School Contact, you will get an email from me every week telling you about any kind of update from Power School. Eric, in the past, Power School SIS prompts you to go to the specific school to run an attendance profile. Is this still the case? Yes, Eric, for right now, those pre-built reports, that is still the case because the attendance is this is what makes it hard about Power School. Attendance is tied to sections, and sections only exist at the school, which is why a lot of that has to be ran at the actual school level. Once we get Unified Insights up and going, however, you're going to see some different attendance reports and some longitudinal attendance reports that will make some of y'all want to look for like truancy meetings, PST meetings, things such as that inside of Unified Insights instead of inside of the SIS. So when I tell you a lot of stuff's going to open up and blossom for y'all this year, it really is. With this attendance rewrite and with what we're going to get inside of Unified Insights, some of the struggles y'all have had at pulling discipline, at pulling attendance, and just things in general is about to get a lot easier for you. All right, I am going to, yes. So Eric just said, I've noticed that the attendance profile reports are no longer running via PDF. So 2 updates, or maybe it was 1 update ago, that was a change that was put out there by Power School, that they were going to more of a HTML version so it could be more user friendly. You can still hit Control P on those and print them off. I know there's a little bug in Chrome where it prints funny. So some of that will be things that you're probably going to want to do in other ways. Can we expect training through our local in-service center or through webinar? So look for trainings by myself and by the Power School coaches. We're going to start everything off in webinar virtual format to begin with until we kind of get the school year going. Once we do, then we will start doing some more on-site training with some of the seminars, kind of like we did when we went around the state offering in-person trainings at areas. We've got some new ideas on some trainings for the upcoming school year. So y'all just stay tuned to your emails and to that Power School Updates email for all of those goodies that are going to be coming on. I've got Scott has worked through an entire plan of doing some on-site training here for building enterprise reports. And so if some districts want to send people to come and actually build out in person some enterprise reports, we are. The coaches and myself are going to be offering some in-person security group training. So if you are thinking about redoing security and how it's set up for your district, especially with the new UI, we'll be offering some of those sessions as well in person. And then coming up soon, because we did get the big update where you can turn the new UI on, just please make sure you read that updates email to see whether you should or not, because there's some things still not working in it that you might not want to swap people to. There'll be a lot more webinars coming out with the new UI, and we'll start shifting all of our documentation over to that. Tiffany, we don't have dates on them yet. As soon as we do, I will put that out there for you. We're in works on all that right now. All right, anything else from anyone? All right, over 200 of you still hung them here with the hour and 17 minutes. I scheduled for 2 hours. I'm actually going to stop the recording since we've covered the main piece of this, and then I'm going to allow y'all to unmute if there's anything that y'all need to talk about for a little while. So 1 second.